but we are finally live. Yes. Hold on a second here.
Thank you very much for allowing me on your podcast.
Well, there's nothing about allowing or not allowing. You said I want to come on, and we're going to dispel the I'm not cool thing. Just pretty hardcore because that will be probably dispelled relatively quickly. See there?
I'm here. Hi,
See,
Rebecca.
see? We are live, and we got people already talking to you. So that's pretty cool. See?
Yeah, I'm feeling the cool is rising here. I'm getting an increment of cool.
Yeah. Well. Can I tell the story of the surprise that came on when we were about to go on?
Yeah, oh, please do.
So when we agreed to an interview, Lyssa told it's like, is this a podcast, right? It's like, well, yeah, it's a podcast. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and we do it on Twitch. So literally about a minute before the video, she's like, "Oh, I don't do video," and she told me why, and that's her business. She wants to tell people why. It's a legit reason. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's not a problem. Just turn your camera off." And it's one of those situations where it like so she's like, "I can't figure this out. I got this, and then when we finally figured it out, it was just my face on screen. Now, I am an egomaniac. I am the first to admit it. But I want my guests to be represented somehow, some way, somewhere over the rainbow. So it took us a little while, but we finally got there. So, Lyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you to have me. I'm still learning about podcasts. This is the third one. This is the third one I've done. So, you may have to sort of guide me through some of the weirder aspects.
What weirder aspects? So, talk to like Rebecca just did my show not too long ago. She'll tell you this is pretty chill. Like you just be yourself. I only really have two rules. There's only two rules to the show. Don't be a bigot. First rule.
That I approve of.
The second rule is if you're going to be a dick, be an entertaining one.
I approve of that as well. Let's go.
That's it. Listen. I don't pretend. I don't know what to expect whenever I have a guest come on the show. Sometimes we have even guests have come on before. Sometimes we just go in completely different directions the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. And what I've learned about this is just all I really care about is that you're authentic. The rest of it, I'm not really that worried about because the rest of it doesn't require much thought. I mean, a lot of times we have our guards up. It's like, there's got to be a catch. Nah, I don't give a shit about that. So, and you can swear on my show too, so don't feel bad about that. Just be yourself.
I might use some interesting expressions. I'll use the British ones.
I know some of your British ones. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them. I've read some of your British comic writers. They swear a lot.
Yep. I don't use much bad language because I heard that if you swear when you're in pain, it actually relieves the pain. They've done experiments, but only if you don't swear a lot in the rest of your life. So I'm sort of saving up the swear words in case I'm hurting.
Well, yeah, it's a pain endorphin release, right? So
yep.
So now there is, and I will say this as someone that swears on a regular basis. Oh, beautiful! See, you're getting singled out. Rebecca says, ladies and gentlemen, she says that, but she's the one that taught me how to swear in Queen's English. But see, that's how you make friends, Rebecca.
Use the words doesn't mean I don't know what they are.
Well, it's not like that. So I've joked about this, but it's true. If you want to learn another language, the first thing you do go to somebody is like, "Hey, what's your swear words?" And it gets like this impish reaction. Oh, this one's bad, but you'll love this, and then they'll just give it to you. It's great. It's absolutely great, and it now that's funny. That is funny. That's genuinely funny. See, hilariously, Lyssa had to look it up to tell me. See, it's one of those moments where you gotta, like I said, you just gotta know your crowd. And the thing is, this is what I say. Like the biggest thing I've learned in this life is, if I go to you, hey, you want to buy something? You're gonna be like, oh, what the fuck is he gonna say now? Right? But if I go to you, you want to play a game? You'll be like, there's that registers. What kind
Uh-huh.
of game? That's literally the first thing that'll come out of your mouth. It's like, what kind of game?
Uh-huh.
And the reason being is, we all want to goof off. Like seriously, when it comes right down to it, we all want to kind of just chill, be ourselves, goof off. The rest
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think it's nice to play. I think one thing that the English language, in all of its various forms, because let's face it, Australian English and the English in the States and English in England and Scotland, it's all its variations. It's a wonderful, flexible, creative language where you can make all sorts of strange things happen with it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Lowland Scots apparently is now considered in some places a separate language.
Nice. And apparently there's a Southern England English.
Yes.
There's a New Jersey English. There's a little different variation of English absolutely everywhere you go. It's true.
I love it because it means that you can go out and you can read something or you can speak to somebody and you get an idea of what their path has been.
Yes.
Yes. And most of the time, of course, who else?
Sometimes the Irish, sometimes the Scots, because the Irish and the Scots, I love you people, but you're a little nuts. You still are to this day. It's okay.
Welsh. My mum's family. There's a lot of Welsh in my mum's family, and they're out there. They're out there.
But that's part of the charm too.
Yes. Yeah, and I love listening to stories about linguistics and that. Not that I understand a lot of it, but I love it. And I always feel that I speak conversational American. I can speak well enough for an American to understand without getting too crazy. But there's always going to be a little gap here and there.
Well, that's the best part of the fun too. Look, I look at it like this. I have a very interesting belief with everything you do in life. I think life is a work of art, and we traverse this canvas in our own way. It doesn't matter whether we're an artist or we're not. We all do it, and how we speak, how we talk, everything. So, what it is it's those unique quirks, right? Now, you want to communicate with as many people as possible. And if I probably make a guess just based on the first 6 or 7 minutes of our conversation, right? You don't necessarily want to create a big fuss about it, right? There's a little bit of, I'm not going to say people pleasing exactly, but more like, I don't really want to get into a fight over how I speak. Whereas me, I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just this this is who I am. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm not.
I think there's first of all there's the English and
Rebecca, I could legit make that happen. Yeah.
I want to see if you could get on with somebody with Scouse, a real strong Scouse or Liverpool accent.
No, get along, absolutely. But my approach would be though very humble, right? No. Like straight up. If I'm not going to, if I am struggling to understand somebody, right? I'm going to make it clear it's me, not them, me, because at that point, they're helping me out. The trick with that, the trick is, see, people want to be understood, right? People want to be understood. But there's a way of doing it in so that, see, if you do it, if you interrupt somebody because they say, I don't understand you, they're gonna get pissed, right? Because subconsciously, right, they're like, well, it can't be me. But if you completely dispel that, it's like, hey, listen, this is my problem. I'm Canada. I'm a little slow. Suddenly, they're going to be a lot more forgiving about me going, could you
Mm-hmm.
repeat that a little slower? Just they'll be a lot more forgiving, right? It's I don't, again, it's the other thing about me is I'm not afraid to look like a fool. Like I'm just not. Like I've done lots of stupid things in my life. I will do plenty more stupid things in my life. I'm good with it. I've made my peace with it. So, right?
Sometimes when you think you're making yourself look silly, sometimes that's some of the best times you can have, though, when you can just
Oh,
relax and be
absolutely.
yourself and just forget about it. I'm not confident in many things. I am confident about writing,
Yes.
but a lot of different things I'm quite diffident about.
Yes.
When you come to understanding, here's an anecdote. I just moved to Yorkshire. I originally grew up on the Wirral, where there's a lot of Scousers, a lot of Irish people, and I was visiting my husband's grandmother in a care home run by nuns, and they were all Irish,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So they come in, there was a disaster on the TV, and the nun was saying how dreadful it was, and I was saying, yes, it was dreadful, and all this. We had a little conversation. She left, and everybody turned to me and said, what did she say? And there is actually quite a strong linguistic division between the West and the East of the UK. I can follow the Irish, but do not expect me to talk to somebody with strong Newcastle accent. I'll struggle. Unfortunately, that's where my mother-in-law came from.
And she's got a sense of humor. So the best thing is, if your mother-in-law drives you nuts, you can turn her off. I don't understand you anyway. Fuck it. I don't care. Right? But no, it's one of those things. It's one of those things, right? It just I've learned this when communicating with people. People want to be understood, right?
Mm.
That's us and everyone from Boston. Yes. It's universal everywhere, right? It's universal everywhere, Rebecca. It's like there are gaps. Even like I had noticed it growing up. I noticed it now that I'm a little older slash wiser, right? Or maybe smarter. I don't know. Um, I live in Canada, so this
Hmm.
is Alberta. Live in the United States, it's a different accent. It's a little bit different. It's not that different, especially in the northern United States. There's not that much of a difference, but there is a difference. So things have this tendency, like again, but I have found more often than not, you approach this. Oh, that's everywhere. Everywhere's got their sayings, Rebecca. Everywhere's got like it's everywhere. But that's
It's
part of the
technical
fun.
terms as well. I mean, technical terms. I worked in an office,
Yeah.
and general correspondence was called gringe.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lovely word for all that, the rubbishy letters where you've got to do something with them, but they're not anything particular. I mean, this was years ago. It's called gringe, and it just was such a wonderful word for it. So everybody makes up their own bits.
Yeah. So what? Why not? Why not? Right? Sometimes, uh, um, sometimes. How do I put this? Uh, Sometimes that's the best part when you can make your own stuff up. Sometimes there's a lot of swearing involved in that too. Sometimes it's actually kind of just fun. But I mean, hey, everybody wants to have fun. Like I said, going back to the very start here, and language is part of that. Like
Yeah.
language is part of that. Like we're all. If you really sit there and think about it, Lyssa, the world's an absurd place. It really,
Yeah.
really is. So we can pretend we get it, but the truth is, most of us don't. Like most of us really don't. We think we do, but we don't. I certainly don't get it. But I figure if life has a bit of a joke to it, I might as well learn to laugh with it. So I'm going to have some fun while I'm here. And that's it. The older I get, I try to keep it as simple as possible. And um, it's been funny because the last few days I've had somebody come on my motivations and kind of like try to challenge me. It's like, it doesn't work like that. Oh no, I assure you, it does work like that. It really does. And this is how. And what do you think? And then I get no response anymore. It's weird how that works. But anyways,
I was very lucky because my father, who passed away a few years ago, had a very adventurous soul. He grew up in like a farm labourer's cottage, in the countryside. He left school at 14, but he read very widely and he took advantage of all his opportunities.
Yeah.
And he was a regular in the army back in the 50s in the Royal Engineers. And he was stationed near Evesham, near Stratford-on-Avon. And they were actually giving out free tickets to the Shakespeare at the Globe Theatre to the squaddies to try and fill the seats. And my dad thought, do you know something? That's a free ticket. I'll go and see what the fuss is about. And he saw Olivier at the Globe in Stratford. He saw all these wonderful plays and he got hooked. And the officers were quite approving of the men watching it as well. So he used to get a free pint in the interval. The officers used to buy him a pint.
Yeah, so I mean that's the whole point, right? Life is all life. This life's an adventure. When you want, like, if you want it to be an adventure, it can be. It can be a magical place if you want to go and let yourself find that magic.
Oh yeah, I was really blessed with him in that because he encouraged us to look outside of what we might be expected to fit into. So when he moved in with us when he was 80, and he wasn't a frail little old man. He was trouble. He really was. But he got us watching rugby and going to the ballet and drinking far too much, really drinking far too much, especially when England were playing, and things like that. And it really broadened our minds just by having an adventurous attitude and looking and saying, the world is amazing.
Yeah. No, like you're only here for a short time. And if you choose to stay, like, okay, I'm on this computer screen a lot because of my job, what I work on.
Mm-hmm.
But every chance I get, I try to go out. I go out into the world because the world is even in the worst of moments, it's still a magical place. The world doesn't change in that way. If you want to go out and you want to see great things, they're there. Sometimes it's just simple stuff too. I'll tell you a fun story. This was during the pandemic when I was in Windsor, Ontario. Okay, this was at early 2021, right? Early 2021, right before I moved on to my next venture. I'm going home. Okay, now Windsor, Ontario has an incredibly shitty bus system. It's garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing to do with the drivers. It's just the budget, schedule, all that stuff. But where I was working, on my way, I'd be walking by the bus. Well, the bus that would take me home was still operational, or looked like it was still operational. So I go and I ask about it, and they go, "Well, no, it's not." Oh, and I feel kind of bummed. So I go, no worries, thanks, on the way. It's like, I'll tell you what, this is what they decided to do. They were really nice about it. We'll take you home. I actually got a single solitary bus ride, just me and the driver.
Mm-hmm.
Just go from there. They took me straight home. They just didn't have to do it. It was just, all I did was I went out and just asked a question, and next thing I know, you get a ride home. It's a simple thing, but people.
There are some very wonderful people in the world.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion.
No, absolutely. The trick is, are you open to it? Right? Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, when I go out, I leave this home.
Mm-hmm.
Because this distracts so much. The cell phone, ladies and gentlemen, distracts so much sometimes from what's going on around you. And sometimes, again, you meet people, you can have amazing conversations. Sometimes an opportunity will present itself. Like, why not? Let's just check it out, right? Let's just see where it goes. That's life. Like, life is about, like I've learned this. If you have an open mind and a willingness to go out there and see what's possible, it's amazing what you'll find. It's like there's almost like there's a world of magic and wonder sometimes legitimately under your doorstep. The only real question is, do you really want to go see it?
I think this is where I wish I was braver. I relatively recently passed my driving test. I'm heading rapidly towards 60 years of age. I've only just learned to drive a car. I
That's
passed in
fine.
2019.
Yep.
And when I first passed, I used to get in the car on a Saturday. I had massive agoraphobia before then. I used to get in the car and just go and see where I ended up. I have been in the wrong lane all over West Yorkshire. Yesterday, I was giving a friend a lift. I went 3 times round Huddersfield town centre because I took the wrong turn. And you just go with it. You enjoy it, and that I still haven't worked out the motorways, which is the freeway equivalent. And I really need to learn those out. Those how to get onto those. But apart from that, I will just go, and that's been a real boon to me.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. You sometimes. Oh, okay. Listen, I think Rebecca's right. A moment of silence for all those poor hedgerows that had to use that. So we are gathered here today, ladies and gentlemen, to honor the hedgerows that were sacrificed in the name of Lyssa's newly discovered adventurous spirit. Praise be and rest in peace.
Oh man, I used to come onto Facebook and say driving lesson, no casualties, but some damaged hedgerows on driving lesson, no casualties, but the curb definitely flinched.
Hey, the curb's like, oh shit, she's on the road again. And literally, that's what the curb was saying. So, oh shit, right? It's just like that's it. That's it, right? See, like,
Oh yeah.
and this is so I'm taking my podcast on the road in the second half of this year. I wanted to do it sooner, but it's going to probably take me that long to get fully ready because I want to see the world. I have met incredible people. Miss Rebecca is one of them. Actually, Rebecca's known me for a long time. She just finally came on the show not too long ago. But people like Rebecca, people like yourself, people like Marissa Mayer, people like Joe Compton, people like Timothy Niederreiter. Tim. By the way, I have a personal theory about Timothy Niederreiter. I don't know if you know who he is or not. Right? My theory about him is he's secretly waiting for the adventure to come to him because that boy is willing to do anything. He's awesome, right? Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Right? Oh no. So, but the thing is, yeah, life is there's a whole world out there, folks. And woe to you if you are how do I put this? If you never go out and see it. It's actually I think one of the biggest shames for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think there's 2 versions. There's the ones that go out and look, and the ones that are. I was just doing the school run this afternoon, and I was behind a coach, and they had the little screen saying where they're going, and this one just said on a mission. And so you look out and you see around just on the school run, you see fun things like that. Coach on a mission.
Yes, on a mission.
That's all it said. Coach on a mission.
On a mission. Coach on a mission. That's interesting.
You see, you just see things like that. And I once drove past a naked man hanging out of a window.
That's interesting.
And there must be a story then. You always think, oh, story. There's stories everywhere. Just doing the school run, just going to the supermarket. You know, you see stuff. If you keep your eyes open, there is a life everywhere.
Likely story,
my sense of humor
likely story, Rebecca. Likely story. Right. No, that's. I mean, yeah. No, you look out. The world is weird and wonderful, happy, sad. The biggest lesson I've learned in this life is no matter where I go, like Calgary's gotten a lot rougher. I have a side gig. I work at the hockey arena, right? And
wow.
So coming home every night, I usually walk up to the train, but walking the way I usually walk, I end up seeing. So there's an addictions clinic where a lot of homeless people gather, right? Mm-hmm. And I get to see how we neglect people, but I also see take them in and talk to them, and they light up, and And it's funny because I reaffirmed a promise I made to myself a long time ago with a friend last night. And so here's my promise I made to myself. I said, if I ever, uh, uh yes, I figured our alcohol kind of strong. Yeah, and the thing is, um, uh, um, the thing is, how do I put this? It's one of those things where, okay, so the promise I made was I talked to a friend last night. Last 2 nights I've talked to two friends from two different parts of the world. One from Hawaii, one from Vancouver. The one from Hawaii is my next novel project. But we also made a talk about staying true to your character, which is why my Tuesday motivation was specifically for her. But last night I said if I ever made it as a writer, I made really serious money, I'd open up a soup kitchen, because I've learned that the best way to deal with pain, when people feel misunderstood and hurt and angry, is to try to treat people like human beings, even if it's just for a minute. If you do that,
that's a hard lesson, but it's so important.
Yeah, and it's not a big thing. It really isn't. Like being kind to people for the sake of being kind is not hard. Treating people like they're human beings is also not hard.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who they are, right? It's something I've learned a long time ago, and also because my own personal experience in life, I've come close to homelessness a few times. I've starved. I realize that it's a very precarious line we all can fall through. And if we're not kind to these people, well, if we end up there, who's going to be kind to us?
Yeah. I've never been really at risk, and not as an adult, but I always feel there, but for the grace of God.
Yeah.
Anybody could find their way there.
Yeah.
And you have to, and it's not just, you can't just say, this is a homeless person. This is a person, and they're in this situation as well. That's something I believe. You look at the person first. And sometimes that's what they need as much as anything else, just to somebody to see them as not a statistic, not somebody who's on the streets, but a person. And then beyond that,
I've done this a few times since I've been back here, and again, I'm not making money at this moment in time in my life, but I mean, I've bought people lunches and dinners here and there, right? I don't brag about it or anything like that, but it's just like you said, it's a little thing. It doesn't cost me that much at the end of the day, right?
One thing that I'd like to share that I do that I hope other people might think is a good idea. We have a collection for food for the food bank in the supermarket I go to. And whenever it's coming up to a birthday or an anniversary of somebody I've lost, I always put sweeties in there for the kids. Because, a candy, put something in there to remember my family. Instead of buying flowers for church, I put sweeties or nice things in the food bank. And I think that's one way of just touching what's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it doesn't have to. By the way, folks, it doesn't necessarily have to even be a food bank. There's lots of places to help people. Help people in the way you feel you're comfortable helping them. That's it. Doesn't take much. Really doesn't.
It doesn't take much effort for me, because I walk past that basket for the food bank on the way out to the car. So, it's so easy for me to do it. I cannot take much credit, but I just think it's nice to just do something.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You still did it. Like, don't sell that short. Just don't sell that short. Pardon me. You did something. Again, asking one person to solve the problems of the world is ridiculous. But you're like, well, what can I do in my own way to stem the tide? It doesn't really matter how you do it. I mean, we all. What I look at is, again, when I can be very business oriented when it comes to my podcast. I talk about marketing on here a lot, and I talk about the importance of finding your worth a lot. But at the same time, but one of the reasons I fight so hard for that because I want these people to fight for their own and help people find their own worth. And depending on where you are in life, whatever that looks like, um, there's points where you can give back too. And because again, no one, as you say, through the grace of God, you go where you go. If you get to the very top, I mean, that there's a lot of things that have to go your way to make that happen, right? Even if you do everything right, and you have to do everything right, right? And there's points for that, but at the same time, like you don't have to go there, right? Um,
Do you watch Welcome to Wrexham?
I do not watch television at this point.
It's Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have taken over an English football club, a soccer club, Wrexham AFC.
Okay.
And I've been watching that because I do follow soccer a little bit. Liverpool, right down to the marrow.
Okay. Okay.
But one of the things they've done, which I really respect, is that instead of doing all the big fancy stuff with the first team, they've supported the women's team, they've supported disabled football, they've improved disabled access, they've reached out to the community. It isn't about the big headlines and getting to Wembley. It's about making a difference to the community. And it's a fascinating story. It really is. An interest. They're two storytellers, so of course they're going to present a good story to us. But it's a very interesting journey, and I think that's a lesson that you don't have to go for the big fancy rewards. You can go out to the community if you've got that sort of reach.
So when you're younger, you care about that stuff because it's like it's how to put this. There's a recognition. There's a recognition to it, right? To kind of what you want that recognition. You kind of want to know that what you've done has made a difference. I think that's why you go for these accolades because they're supposed to matter a bit and they're supposed to help. When you get older, though, you realize that's not really how you do it. I talked again, ironically, talking about this on my post this week. It's not a lot of people care about their reputation, but what it's really about is your character.
Yeah.
Everything you do, the rewards, the accolades, the things that come with it. I'm just going to shut my phone off that way. I don't constantly get bombarded by these beeps. The thing is, right? I realize that that's not the way this works. It's the work and character you put in at the beginning that creates that reputation, that creates those opportunities for those awards. So I just tell people don't worry about that. Worry about what you care about, whatever that is. And it sounds like for your soccer team or your football team, football proper over there, right? It's
Yeah.
real football. It's real football, not that American candy.
I still
joke.
fancy getting into watching some of the American football. I think it would be a good. It sounds like it's very exciting. It sounds like it's quite intense.
Yes.
Not that I know anything about it. You understand?
Yeah. No.
I watch a lot of sports.
I told you. It's funny. Like I work at a hockey arena this year, right? And the thing is, I respect all athletes. Doesn't matter like football, whether American. There's an athletic, there's a skill set that's very unique, and it's amazing to watch. But that'll said, like the point I'm getting across is like it sounds like that team decides like we're going to just deal with the community. We don't give a shit about what anyone thinks about what we're doing, one way or the other. We're just doing it because we want to do it. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's nothing magical. It's nothing. It's that simple. And the story is so interesting that people just couldn't help but fall in love with it. Does that make sense what I'm saying there?
Yeah, yeah. The Welcome to Wrexham series that was on Fox and Disney Plus over here has made fans for this little, minor, tiny football club from Chile, Serbia, all over the USA and Canada, because it's not talked about the sport, it's talked about the story and the people and the community. And I think that's something of what you were saying earlier. It's not necessarily about the end result. It's about the journey. It's about the people. It's about talking.
So I have 10 rules of success, and
Mm-hmm.
the fourth rule is the rest is rain. And yeah, and the whole point of that one is the results. Like you can. So I have watched Star Trek's Next Generation. Did you ever watch that show?
I've watched a couple of episodes. Yeah.
Okay, so one of my favorite lines from that show is Captain Picard and Mr. Data goes, "Mr. Data, it is possible to do everything correctly and still lose." And that's an important life lesson. Like the paradox of success. The paradox of success is you can do absolutely everything right and still not get to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Consequently, if you don't do any of those steps, you're doomed to fail. That's just the way it is. It's not fair. But the result isn't guaranteed. And so you have no control over that. The final result, you have no control where you go,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you try to go for. So the important thing then is, okay, but that's not your job. Your job is to do everything you know how to do to be right. And that's the journey in of itself, right? It's about learning to fail, learning to succeed, learning to deal with your imposter, learning to be brave, learning to know what to say no. All of these things are all this part of the journey until you finally come face to face with the true success of the journey, you, wherever you go. And everything else that happens to you is nice.
Yeah, but yeah, it's very much. I like. It is the journey. It is seeing what you can do. I mean, I'm pretty much focused on writing. So for me, it's all about the writing. It's all about the stories, about the characters, and how I'm developing. Rebecca, you have done wonders for me. Thank you. And it's about getting better and telling better stories and being more interesting. It would be nice to make money, but that's the big drive for me, is telling that story. And that is one of the most wonderful things that I've grown to over the last, say, about 12 months or so. Is more and more about the stories. What stories can I tell? And I got onto the bestseller list of a very small segment. It was 3 books in a particular segment, but I got into number 14. And yeah, it's great, but I enjoyed writing it so much that's the thing.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you one question. We're going to go down this path a little bit. This isn't, by the way, there's no wrong answer. I'm just very curious about something. I love your passion about writing, and I'm not questioning that. But what's your goal? Do you want more people to read your stuff? Are you just happy telling the story?
That is a really good question. Now, to be honest,
You've been on the bestseller's choice. You're holding back on me. You're holding back on me.
My honest truth, I want everybody to read it. I want everybody to read my stuff. I want everybody to love it. It will be wonderful. But really, the writing really also fuels me. I get better in myself, my personal life, the more I write. So I suppose, yes, the journey's there. The journey in writing is good. Even if nobody reads the stuff, I'm still writing. Lots of people reading it is awesome.
Okay, so the writing's the important thing. Who
Yeah.
reads it is secondary. I just want to make sure I clearly understand this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it had been the other way around, me and you would have had a small chat. Because again, I it's important to understand what you want. There's no crime, whatever you choose. Be honest about what you want. That's why I tell everybody, just be honest about it. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. Hey, that's as valid reason to write as anything. Grow through writing. I love it.
The
Right?
last few months, I've managed, when I finally finished the sequel to King Silver, and Rebecca will tell you that was like she had to put me on a rack and torture me to get it out of me. Once I finished that, everything seemed to just slot into place a lot more at the start of the year, and the writing has improved. But I'm gonna argue one thing. I have a son, the light of my life, who is coming up for college, which is expensive. And if I can make money writing, that would be great.
Okay. So
So I have to look at that and think, do I want to write to market? And I could probably sort
it's
of do it.
see, I don't necessarily think it's about writing to market exactly, but what it's about is telling people about your books. See, and that's where a lot of authors struggle too, is because, okay, so have you ever watched professional wrestling?
Yes.
Okay,
Not for a while, but yes.
so no, that's cool, right? I love professional wrestling. I'm a big professional wrestling fan, but my favorite era is the first era I watched, which was the late '80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking back, you know what my favorite stuff was? Do you remember when Mean Gene Okerlund would interview wrestlers?
I think I missed that because I only started watching about late 90s.
Okay, so this is before your time. This is when I was a little kid. I'm
It
aging myself.
only really came over here in the late 90s, and it only got access to it in the late
Oh,
90s.
okay. So in the '80s, a guy by the name of Mean Gene Okerlund would, after matches, advertise. They would advertise live events, right? And they would be interviewing these guys, talk about the wrestling matches. My personal favorite is Macho Man Randy Savage. Okay, that's my personal
I've
favorite.
heard of him.
Oh yeah, thinking. Oh yeah. But anyways, he would come out and he would dress the most. Now he's my favorite. Now other people it's Ric Flair, other people it's Hulk Hogan, but for me, it was the Macho Man. And the thing about the Macho Man was, um, it's probably the most important lesson in advertising I've ever seen, because he was out there, he's outlandish, and it was silly. Like, on one hand, it's completely silly. You have grown men in these elaborate costumes talking about beating up other men at this arena at this time, and you better be there or you miss it. But on the other hand, they believed in who they were, and they put themselves out there. And the ones that were really good at it taught people to actually come to the arena and watch them perform. Right? And the
Mm-hmm.
Macho Man was one of the best people about it. He believed in himself. And the lesson with the Macho Man from every author, I tell this to every author: your books are probably great. I haven't read your book personally, but your books are probably great. Don't be afraid to tout the horn about how awesome your book is. Because if you don't do it, no one else is going to believe it either. You have to be a little bit of I'm not saying a full like professional wrestling performer, but you gotta believe in what you're doing, and you gotta be willing to go ahem.
You see, I do. It's one of the things where I do actually have confidence is writing. I think I put on, it was The Forgotten Village that was on. It was on free and it went to the bestseller. And I wrote that. It came out in 2012 and it is good for what well, the stage was at then. It was good. And I've edited it and it's better.
So here's the thing. I'm saying this honestly. Okay. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? For the first time ever. So congratulations, first off. But second off, that tells you something, right? You have a good product, right? I'm sorry. I'm trying to do two things at once, and I'm being a little disrespectful on that. So I'm gonna try to fix that
No
the rest of
stress.
the way. No, here's the thing. You're good. That's an amazing feat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine, okay, if you just said, my book's great. and you should check it out. Even if it's a couple days a week. By the way, who likes your book? Like, who's your audience, if you don't mind my asking?
I have no idea.
Okay. Maybe that's the first step.
But I write, the Forgotten Village is like a paranormal mystery.
Okay.
I write steampunk, and I write medieval fantasy. All of them are suitable for under 18s so far. I've got a few. You see, I write the stories I hear, and suddenly they go skittering off in all directions.
So her books are the legends that are okay. There's nothing wrong with scaring. Okay. So Rebecca knows the audience. So Rebecca knows your audience. So medieval stuff. Okay. So here's a thought for you. This is just a thought. You mind if we brainstorm for a minute or two?
I am happy to listen very closely to you.
Okay, so do you know who also might like medieval books? People that dress up.
Yes.
Right? So what if, just off the top, see, it's not about writing to market exactly. It's about writing, okay. Think about this, right? You wrote a medieval paranormal stuff, okay? Who's going to like that? Well, who do people that like this stuff, where do they go? Colleges, medieval, like I don't know what LARPing, if LARPing is a thing in England, but I imagine it is.
Yeah, it is.
So LARPers, gamers, Dungeons and Dragons, particularly that community, theaters. So what if you decide, because again, no one's going to these places, right? LARPers. See, there you go. See. So what
it's really good. The Silver Series actually, I know it's not my nature to say it's good, but it is good. It is really good. It is partly, I'll frame it. It is partly about new magic coming into a non-magical medieval world. So people are starting to adjust and change in reaction to magic. Okay. So you've got new things coming in. And I tell you something, I have researched the absolute tar out of that background.
So you love that book?
Yeah.
So would you go to a LARPer group and talk about it?
Yep.
You should. Why haven't you?
Good point. Well made. I'm trying to get the courage up.
You're never
gonna... So there's a steampunk fair going on 100 miles from me, where I have tickets to the evening performance that I won as a freebie. I have access to a car. I can drive there, except it's a scary distance for me. So I'm trying to think, I've got to go to the steampunk thing, because the steampunk stuff out of the London Mist is also extremely good. I mean, this is difficult for me to say in one way, but I will stand by Out of the London Mist. It is a damn good book. It has a good plot, it has good characters and good pacing. Rebecca, am I right?
Okay, so there's two ways of looking at fear. Okay, see, Rebecca's your cheerleading you on. So
Rebecca is awesome.
Rebecca is awesome. Not going to argue. So here's two things you get. There's two possibilities for you. I've said this. So the pandemic taught me many things. One, so me personally, I'm not the kind of person that fear is like, okay, cool. So we're gonna do a little strategies, little mini strategy here. So here's the thing, Lyssa. Fear is either a cage or a door.
Mm.
Now, because usually fear is connected to something you want, right?
Yeah.
You want to go talk about it. You want to be there. You want to go there. It's not only to performance, but to get yourself out there. You want that, but you're afraid of whatever it is you're afraid of, right? There's another part of you. It's like, well, gee, I don't know about this. This might be risky. Whatever is going on in your head. I'm not trying to read your mind. I'm just telling the story here. Um. So they're both wants. Which one are you going to listen to? Now, I would say, based on what we've talked about earlier, I know what your dad would have done.
I would have been holding him back. He would have absolutely gone for it.
So then be like your
Thanks to
dad.
my dad, I could walk into a room and not be scared of meeting people. I could talk to anybody.
So look, he's still a part of you. And the thing about, okay, so this is my caution to you, my dear, because you've seen a good example. You've had a benefit few people have. You have it thanks to your dad. You've seen a taste of the wonder of the world, just like with my dad. Right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right? Of course. Of course. Right? So your dad would tell you, Lyssa, this is what you want more than anything else. Get your ass in gear. Probably not. I don't know if you say it like that, but that's what you'd say. This is what you want. The adventure you want, the journey you want. You want to make money to support your son. Well, that means you're going to have to put yourself in a position where you're going to have to go out there. Now, in saying that, I mean, I owe you, and I am obligated to tell you a little bit. How to put this? Again, it's going back to something I said. It may not work out the way you imagine it to. It will work out. Maybe it doesn't lead the way you hope it does, but it might be better. That's the other thing too. So what you want is on the other side of the door. And the thing is, you more than most know this, right? You know this
I am
because
so glad that I have come here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been really encouraging.
Yeah. I like I said, but not just no. Record. This is where I'm not gonna say just do no. You're not doing it for your bear. You're doing it for your dad. You're doing this for you because you owe yourself this. You know. Here's the thing. You know. You don't have the luxury a lot of people of what if. You know. You don't have that luxury. You just know. So this is about you. This is about what you want. This is about what you need. This is about what you have to do. And if you're not going to stand up for yourself now, knowing what you know, no one else will.
That is awesome words. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I'd
So,
like to come back with a little story about how I sort of come up to the steampunk.
sure.
And it reflects my journey in writing very well. There was a call for a steampunk anthology, and I read Jules Verne and H.G. Wells when I was a kid, and I loved it. But it's all science, and I do not understand science. So I thought, I can't write anything. I can't write anything. And then a few days before the deadline, I wrote 7,000 words. Something like that. Huge story. Rebecca has seen it. And it was a short story that never made it to the anthology, but it was a seed for Out of the London Mist. And I thought, these are stories that I need to tell. This is what I need to tell. And so by a sort of accident, that put me on a steampunk path. Mm-hmm. Listening to you is probably going to get me to Shrewsbury.
Good. See where it goes. Again, you know as well as I do, there's no guarantee what the outcome will be. But you owe it to yourself. And there's one other, but there's a caveat to this. You have to do everything you know to be right.
Yes.
If you do that, what happens, right? Right? If you do that, Whatever happens, you walk away, you live with. Okay?
Well, yes, because if you don't do anything, or what's there to look back on and learn from? You can either
Exactly.
look back and say, "Oh, that was perhaps not good," or you can look back and say, "You know, something, I nailed it," or "This is what I learned."
Yeah.
Um,
But it's about one thing and one thing only, right? Do the steps you know what to do, right? Because that's it. That's all I can ask anybody to do. Do what you know to the best of your ability and get out of your way and let yourself happen. My fifth rule is get out of your fucking way. And what that means is you and your little imposter, you got to put your imposter into a little corner with your ego and have a little conversation. And then you get them in line by either intimidating them, whatever you need to do. But the idea is whether you succeed or you fail, you're not going to fail because of you, right? You're going to go in there as armed as you can, as prepared as you can, and you're going to let what happens happens. Now, it might not work out, even with all that I've said, but you're going to walk away with good conscience that you did everything you knew how to do. Because that's all anybody can do.
mm-hmm.
That's it. Now, if you can do that, doesn't matter what the result is. I did what I was supposed to do. The rest will take care of itself. That's it. That is the entirety of the game, right? I learned this a long time ago, right? It's about learning how to do the steps right. That is the real journey. The rest of it, it's almost like a sports, okay, it's like sports, right? Like we talk about like football, soccer, right?
Uh-huh.
Right. Here's the thing, right? When the team first starts, when it's a young team, they lose a lot the first year. They have to learn how to lose. Now the second year, they do a little bit better, maybe a lot better, but usually it takes 3 years, right? The second year, they're better at it. They win more games, they're still losing. But by the third year, they're like, we got our shit together.
Yeah.
And we're going to go in there and we're going to kick everybody's ass. Now, still might be some teams better than them, but they're no longer beating themselves. Someone has to beat them. That's a different mentality altogether, right?
Yeah.
That's what this is about. The idea in this game, the truth, like what beats most authors from making serious money, honestly, is not the writing; it's everything else, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So, if money is a goal, it's a mindset. It's I'm going to do everything I know how to do and see where it leads.
Yeah.
Sorry, does it feel like I've been a little preachy? I can go
It
back to
feels like inspiration.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to say what I'm proud of, though. I've written
Sure.
those books and I'm proud. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I've done is most Mondays on my website, Always Another Chapter, that's what it's called, Always Another Chapter. I put up fiction. I write some fiction every week. It might be a short story, it might be a series, but I get that out in front of people, regardless of anything else that I'm doing. And I see it as the gym for my writing.
Yes.
And I get quite quick feedback. I get people giving me some sort of yes, I like this or not. And I see where I go wrong and I can think, well, maybe that didn't work so well, or yeah, that really worked well, or I could use this. And I'm very proud of that. That is something that I've really worked hard to do. And yeah, I'm going to take the credit for that.
The gin or the gym. It could be either one.
I'm on vodka at the moment. It gives me easier hangovers. At my time of life, you got to take what you get.
Yeah, exactly. 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 No, I'm just saying, like, I say it like this. I just say it like this because I have learned this doing what I advertise for writers and stuff like that, right? And one of the things I've learned, yes, 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 I got that. You have a big fan there, and Rebecca's cool. But the biggest thing I've learned about authors, and authors in particular, about this, you have to talk a little bit about your work and a little bit about yourself,
Mm.
because you're the constant with every project, and and that's where a lot of authors fall short. And the ones that are really successful, if you look at like Rob Sawyer, Marissa Mayer, right, Spider Robinson, Charles DeLint. Now again, they may not have like the biggest personalities when they're out there, but they're open and they engage,
Mm.
and that is, and you can tell why they are where they're at, and why. And I'm not saying every author's this way. I write epic poetry about Alice in Wonderland and Greek mythology. That's not for everybody. Same
Sounds
time,
awesome.
yeah,
That
yeah,
sounds really awesome.
it really is. I took Alice and Pandora and I mashed them together. Alice
Mm.
is Pandora. She opens Pandora's box, gets a certain Cheshire friend in her head, and she wakes up in a bizarre wonderland where the cards are her jailers and she doesn't know her own name, but the cat's talking to her.
Ah, I am interested.
I will show you when we're off the air. I'll show you the link, because you can buy it. It's an Amazon exclusive. You get it in the UK. So there you go. See, but again, listen to how I talk about it. I'm excited about it. I
Mm.
love the story, right? I do. So, and that's the secret. Um, yeah, no, like it sounds like you like writing wise. I could learn from
Mm.
you. I have to be a little bit more in practice of what I'm doing. I do podcasts, I do videos. I have become this weird renaissance creator in the sense, I say that like not in the sense that I'm a master of all these things, but I do so many different things that every once in a while I have to focus myself.
Mm. Yeah.
Right. That's where I'm at on my journey. It's that I've acquired a bunch of skills and now I have to figure out the balance to them all over again.
Yeah. I think I found these last few months. So are you getting messages there?
Yeah, yeah. On where?
I just wondered if Rebecca was coming through with anything.
Not yet.
This
Not
this
yet.
these first few months, I've had the courage to say yes, I'll go on a podcast, which was a step,
Mm-hmm.
and I very much enjoyed it because I like talking. I've re-edited and got new book covers for a couple of books. I'm plotting out different ideas. I finally finished the sequel to King Silver, which Rebecca had to fight me for. I had a bad year last year. And yeah, that, by the way, I'm also very pleased with the Castle Viberg because it's a really good horror story set in a medieval fantasy world, I think, anyway. I think that there's a lot to be scared in it.
Mm-hmm. So you've taken steps in building your confidence. Yes, but so I guess if there's one thing you picked up on this particular chat, you made Rebecca crap her pants when it comes to ghosts.
I worry about not. I write scarier than I can read, by the way. I went on a podcast with the Pajama People and they wanted to talk about horror stories. And they sent me a link to one. Do you want to discuss this? I couldn't even manage the trailer. It terrified me. But I write a bit scarier than that.
See, you remind me of like some of my friends that are heavy metal fans. Like they go to a show. I'm a heavy metal guy too. Heavy metal people are some of the sweetest people you ever meet.
Oh, yeah.
Out of the pit. No, hey, listen, hey, I'm cool with this, Rebecca. It's not that. It's also the fact that it's how you tell the story, right? And it sounds like from a storytelling standpoint, you got your shit nailed down. Look, at least according to Rebecca, anyway. I'll have to read something of yours. But what it comes down, like I said, what it comes down to, and I'm gonna reiterate this: the spirit of your dad. Pardon me, the spirit of your dad for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Yes, right. So, um, Like if you know how to tell a story, right? Yeah, exactly. What would Dad do?
He'd probably drink.
Well, listen, but no, he also be like, hey, wait, hey, I got this opportunity to do something. I'm just gonna fucking do it, right? Sounds like that's what your dad was like,
He
right?
when I was a kid, when I was about 8, I saw him go into a burning building and rescue somebody. And he also turned up drunk to a prayer meeting and got away with it.
Yep.
So I'm not sure I can feel all of that,
No,
but
you don't need to fill all of that
that
personality.
attitude of going for life,
Yeah.
and he was very very good at just going out there and going for people. He's very good with people.
So again, again, I love my dad. We're not quite the same people. I am by and large a far gentler man than my dad is. But my dad's an incredibly kind, sweet man in his own way. And I say that like, but we're different people. But the biggest two things I picked up from my dad: passion. He's passionate about what he does, to a fault sometimes, but he's passionate about what he does. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And but the second thing is he goes for it. Just doesn't care. Just go for it, man. Just, like he's always encouraged me even when I was a kid to chase my dreams. He's like, fuck it, just go for it, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that open mindedness and that passion are two things I carry with me. I also give about as many fucks as he does about some things. That's not always a good thing, but it's true. Um, but the thing about it is, but we're different people. There are things about him that I look at and go, I want to do better than him at. And there are
Mm.
things he's got that I'll never have. I'm not trying to be my dad, but I'm going to take the things that I admire about him the most. I'm going to try to make them part of my life because
Yes.
that is a way to honor him, in both in two different ways. I take the stuff I love about him the most with me.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, because this is I bet you your dad would say this if he was here. I'd want he'd want you to be your own person,
Yes.
right? Didn't want you to be him. He'd want you to be you, the best
Yes.
version of you.
He was very good at that. Although he did have a blind spot in that his idea of what a fashion a lady should wear stopped around 1952.
Well,
So
that's you know what? You know what? No one's perfect. You can live. You can live with. Hey, if that's the worst thing you can say, no one's. You know what? Live with that, right? So I say it like this. Like this is like you're older than I am. So you probably hit this point way before I'm telling you this. Our parents, even like I'm not as fond as my mom is and my dad. But there are things even my mom does I can look at and say she does well, right? Now there are things about my mom I never would want to be in a million years. Just just my own opinion. And there are things about you know my sister, my grandmothers, my family. I can look at them as people. I'm old enough to do that.
Mm.
And there are things about them as people I love. Not just because I love them, but it's just because I have that knowledge of who they are. I absolutely love. I love my sister's sense of humor. I think it's great,
Mm.
right? I love how she can kind of how she uses it to propel and inspire and be fun with other people, and I love that. Um, I love my grandma's. My grandmother on my mom's side has an adventurous spirit. She had 80 years old. She actually found love the second time with a boyfriend. That was so much fun to watch. My grandmother on my dad's side is one of the most independent people I know. She's a strong, probably the strongest person I've ever met. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There are things about all my family I love. but there are also things about them I don't want to be because I'm not that person. I'm me, you know?
I
And
learned very early on that both of my parents had flaws. My mum and I had a very problematic relationship. I can see the good in her. I can also see the bad. My parents divorced when I was quite young, which was unusual in our area and at that
yeah,
time.
yeah,
I was the only kid in school who had divorced parents.
yeah,
And so I ended up seeing them as human beings. And you can get a lot of inspiration. My mum had her problems, but she knew so much.
yeah,
Rebecca will tell you that I am a demon for research. I got that from my mother. She had 60,000 postcards sorted by continent, country, district, town, and if necessary, area of town. She knew so much. She researched so much. And I've got that and I am grateful for it. She was also a secretary at Chester Zoo before I was born and had to do things like work out how to burn an elephant because the elephant in Chester Zoo had got there and it had anthrax. It had contracted anthrax and they had to burn it more or less in situ. How do you burn an elephant?
that's a question. I'll tell you, no, not one I've ever heard, honestly, right?
So I had that sort of side from her. She had a very adventurous spirit in her own way.
Yeah, no, passion. She was passionate in her own way, and that you have to admire, right? What I got from my mom was my mom's an excellent listener.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's like an excellent listener. Like I said, there are a lot of things I can say about my mom's bad qualities, but her good qualities. Um, she's a listener. She could be incredibly gentle when she wanted to be, right? Um, her sense of humor, I got a little bit of her sense of humor. That's not entirely a good thing because her sense of humor was a bit. But I have a bit of that, right? Um, and I bring all this up like we our families do shape us, but when you get older, you have the ability to separate from your parents, and when you do that, you can honestly become your own person. And sometimes we repeat our parents' mistakes. I've done it. I'm sure you have too.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we repeat our parents' mistakes, but sometimes we do it better. And I think that's what this is all about. Again, we're not here to get it all right. We are here to just be who we are and the
I,
journey of discovering who that is.
I think I'd like to take more of my general family's attitude because going back to the generations, one of my great grandfather's brother ran whiskey to America during Prohibition. They
Almost this, but they keep going.
he actually relieved a famine in Tristan da Cunha, which is this tiny little outpost at the bottom of South America, because he was a master seaman. He was a ship's captain. He had a proper ticket, but he didn't have a regular route, and he hadn't been to Tristan da Cunha. So he went down there, and they'd actually the Royal Navy had forgotten the supply drop, and he was actually able to relieve a famine there. We had pictures when I was growing up of the Boxer Rebellion. I am sometimes I look at the background of my family and think I'm very, very quiet compared to them.
And that's
But
okay. You
that's
don't,
it. That's who I am.
yeah.
I've also got quite a broad attitude to things like I have my own faith, but I'm quite broad-minded about it. My mother's grandparents, one was Roman Catholic, one was Church of Wales, one was, I think, Presbyterian or something like that, and one was a spiritualist medium.
Okay.
So I got all sorts of influences growing up, and I think it helped tell the stories. That's where you get sort of like the interconnectedness. You get lots of different ideas coming through.
Mm-hmm. So my dad and my mom were both Christians, but interesting background. They both had escaped a cult. Right,
Oh,
my dad, two of them. My mom, at least one of them. They got out before it got really freaky. Um, both my parents, in their younger days, actually were they were part of the born again movement.
mm-hmm.
The stories I got. Mom and dad would, when they were married, they would go places, they would exorcise demons, they would do like they would do some wild stuff. um in my own experience, I'm Christian. I don't have that adventure side, but I've been exposed to magic and portals and other, like,
Mm.
the world is a magical place. It really is, and it's a bigger place than I pretend to understand. And what I've learned, I got to a point, like, when you start, like this is what I say. I still believe in God. I still have a very Christian bent in terms of how the world works. But when someone comes to me and say that they talk to mediums, or they're into voodoo, or they're into this or that, I no longer have the I'm holier than thou kind of thing in me anymore. I realize that everybody's walking this life is their own, and I'm going to respect that.
Mm.
Right now, I'll have, if you want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. But I'm not going to necessarily throw that to the forefront, and nor am I going to condemn you for what you do or don't do. That's not my place,
I
right?
think I think I felt growing up because I grew up where I grew up is almost but not quite in Merseyside, the Liverpool area. There's a lot of people from Northern Ireland that lived around there, including some next door but one neighbours. And
Mm-hmm.
you've heard about the Troubles, they were very bad. And you grow up surrounded, being brought on by prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to explain to my son that everybody has them,
Oh, sure,
but you
absolutely.
have to fight them because otherwise, people who've been dead for hundreds of years are doing your thinking for you. You have to push past that. Um, so I didn't grow up with any sort of prejudice against Islam. I grew up seeing Protestant and Catholic, which is a different type of thing,
Yep.
which I really want to utterly, completely reject because it is no good. It's poisoned that sort of conflict.
Oh,
I also grew up in a very, very white environment, very white
yes.
Christian environment. And then I moved to Leeds, which is extremely multicultural, and it is wonderful. It is wonderful to see all the different interactions and that. It's really great.
Yes. Well, no, how do I put this, right? Um, you realize there's a Bible verse I tend to use. It's a new wine can't exist in an old skin, right?
Mm.
Uh
Oh, heck yes. Oh, heck. Oh, heck yes.
yeah, by and large, right? I've learned from what I know, I agree. From what I know, I agree. It's the world that's older has a little bit more of a live and let live philosophy. But the thing is, I remember when I was a kid, like, yeah, Muslim thing was a big over in North America too. Like, there was a big hubbub about it, and over here, especially, like, what seems to happen here is, um, we tend to embrace differences and still, ha, cool, right? Um, we again, there are ideas you grow up with. I'm going to say it like this: there's ideas you grow up with, and some of them, some of them, and it's not even necessarily that the ideas creep in on you; it's the expectations those ideas create that creep in on you. and you gotta and it's hard. And the difference is you play roles you don't realize you're playing roles for
Yeah.
until you're away from it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, even I would think I'm a pretty open-minded guy, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't have my own biases. We all do. I think that's something you got to be honest about.
I
Um,
explained it to my son
mhm,
like this. I used to work in this small little office selling stuff to schools, and I was just the receptionist. I was just on the phones, and every time I got a phone call from Derbyshire, it went horrible. They shouted at me. Every time I spoke to somebody from Derbyshire, which is a county in England, they were awful. And everybody in the office, which was open plan, they'd see me being shouted at and they'd go, Derbyshire. And it always was. And I was saying, that's how you start building a prejudice.
mhm.
But away from that, I've met lovely people from Derbyshire. Of course, everybody's sort of there's good people, there's bad people, but that's one of the things. The expectations. Phone call, Derbyshire. Oh, and it's crazy.
And the hard part is you got to put is when you get older, you can put yourself in the other person's shoes a little
Yeah,
bit, right? And when you can do that, you can walk away from. Now, you still might think those people are dicks sometimes, and you might be right because again, you can't. The feelings you had when you were going through those phone calls probably were a little justified, right? So, but once you understand the circumstances, it's easier to understand it, if not agree with it. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference. But that's the thing, like not it takes a self awareness of to come to that, and once you come to that, you can the there's sometimes I don't know if it's too forgiving is the right word. You might let some things walk that otherwise maybe you shouldn't sometimes, but by and large, let people live and let live. And really, I mean, that's all any. Most of us, all we really give a shit about, honestly, Lyssa, is am I allowed to do my thing, and am I hurting anybody? If
yeah,
the answer is yes to the first and no to the second, no one really cares, and
yeah,
honestly, no one should.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. My brother's done the family tree, and we went back about. It's been hundreds of years in the past, and none of them have cared what the neighbours thought. And that is a really good way to live.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I actually so the pandemic actually put that over the edge for me, like put that completely over the edge for me. I completely have lost my. I just don't care anymore. There's a certain freedom. There's a freedom that comes with that. Like you're not for everybody. That's the other thing too. Like you're not for everybody. So don't try to be. Try to be for the people that you care about, right? And what I mean by that is the people that you connect with,
Yes, because
right?
some people you can talk to. I very much have grown up with quite a social family, so I will talk to people at bus stops, at shops. I will mortify my poor son while I'm talking to people in the supermarket while he's there. And sometimes just click with people, and
Yeah,
sometimes there's just nothing, and you just smile, nod, and move on. And that's all you can do.
yeah. That's it, right? You're not for everybody, and that's okay. They're not for you. And that's honestly, if you think about it like that, sometimes that's a blessing in disguise more often than not, right? But it's how to put this. When you learn that ability, when you learn that ability, you're like, I'm not afraid to piss somebody off. I'm not necessarily trying to do it to the sake of pissing people off either. There's a line there. I think that's the line. But I'm just going to be me, and I'm not going to worry about what other people think. And what I have found, this is what I found doing it this way is, yeah, I do lose some people, but I gain more because I'm now closely aligned to what I'm supposed to be around.
I think for me, I will say that I've long since given up worrying about what people think of me. Gave up on that a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to upset anybody. So I do tend to, and the British way tends to be more formal, a little bit more distance.
Yeah. No. So here's the thing. I don't worry about that anymore either, because how do I put this? I'm going to piss somebody off anyway. that's that's what it comes down to. If I try to be helpful for everybody, I'm going to piss somebody off because I'm not taking a stand on something. If I take a stand on something, I'm going to piss somebody off because how could you stand this way? If I choose a political party I agree with, how could you choose these guys? These guys are sons of... I'm going to piss somebody off no matter what I do.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about that anymore. And also I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I'm supposed to sometimes piss you off.
Sometimes you just have to go for it. In Out of the London Mist, I write a lot about the Jewish community in the East End of London in the late Victorian times.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to prod at some people's preconceptions and ideas. And, you know, so that was the story. That was the story that was wanting to be told in me. And so that's what you got. And the heck with it.
Yeah. Fuck it. Right. And that's it. That's it. Like, that's where it comes to, right? You're not... I don't want... if I am upsetting you because I am challenging your ideas of how the world works, good.
It's great to find out new ways of looking at things. That's like getting a second chance to look at something. That is a good thing.
No, it's a fantastic thing. But here's the thing. And this is something the pandemic was the big lesson for me on this. People have ideas of what they think will work. And if you challenge those ideas in any way, shape, or form, right? Even if you have facts or truths, if people have bought the idea, they will cling to it no matter what. Right? So it's my 9th rule: detach from all outcomes. If you can I can believe in an idea, but I'm also a big enough man to acknowledge that I could be wrong. Yeah. And I can detach from the emotion of when that idea gets challenged. Now, I still might go with the idea when it's over, but at least I can hear you out. And that's the important thing, right? It's not about, again, it's being open to possibilities, right? Yeah. And the thing about that is the pandemic pretty much sealed this away, because when people are afraid, they will cling to certain ideas, no matter what. It doesn't matter which way you want to look at that. It doesn't matter. Both, right? Whether you agree with what was done, whether you disagree with what was done, there are ideas involved both ways, and both ways needed to be challenged, right? And actually, there are more than both two ways. There's many ways of looking at that, but every idea can be challenged and should be, and that's because it's the only way we're going to find anything that resembles a correct path. And that's it. That's how this goes. And
I think when it came to the pandemic, I found it very frustrating that most people was not aware enough to think about some of the possibilities that were going on. I may have mentioned about research. I read a lot of textbooks, university level textbooks, about the Black Death a few years back, long before the pandemic. And while I don't know much science, I do sort of have picked up a bit about the way that viruses and bacteria can be transmitted, and the way that plagues of all sorts can spread, and how people can react in fear and looking for scapegoats and things like that. And there was a huge echo of that.
Absolutely.
And the whole vax and anti-vax and that, without really, they were looking at the emotions of it rather than the science.
Well, for me, I used so England had one of the most comprehensive COVID information in the world. The government reports were amazing. No one read them. or not enough people read them. It had everything from how COVID spread, how actually it
Yeah.
spread, to vaccine reports, to March of 2022, you guys regularly posted results. The results that posted weren't always the ones advertised, mind you, and that in itself is telling on some on other problems we have in our medical industry. But you had one of the most comprehensive databases up until March of 2022 about how the virus worked, and there would have been a lot. I think if people had read more of that, there would have been a lot. I think there would have been a lot less. There would have been a lot more hesitation. Listen to your government leaders on some things. A lot more hesitation.
Oh, heck yeah.
No, there would be a lot more because the government told you exactly what would happen if you took this vaccine, right down to the bone. And a lot of people never read that stuff, but they were very clear. And the longer you read that information, the worse that got. But it's again, it's out in the open, but no one read it, and it was one of the most clinical things. Talked about how COVID spread. Talked about how talked about like the data, who was dying, when they were dying, how they were dying. It's all there. It was all there, and England had probably the best database in the world, probably up until March 2022. So so you have a huge history chunk that nobody read. I read it. It kept me. That's what I use. I stopped listening to news. I read that. I read stuff in Israel. I read stuff in other parts of the world that were doing like as cutting edge research on everything as they could.
Mm-hmm.
I found that was a lot more accurate than what I would get on the news. Right. And my
But
opinion.
that's one of the things that we were talking about, in that people will listen to stories.
Yes.
They don't want to. A lot of people don't want to do the thinking. They want to hear the story.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. They want to hear a story, and that's the thing, right? That was, and then it was amazing to me. So what I learned, like that's when I pretty this is when I pretty much stopped trusting. Now I'm at that point now. If my government tells me that the sky is blue, and I see it and it is blue, I'm worried because I'm agreeing with them. Either right, and that might be a bit of an unhealthy thing when I get to 60, but I think right now that is the correct attitude to have. So that's what I learned in the pandemic, and that's how I learned to detach from all ideas on how the world is. There's lots of information out there. There's lots of things, and people have to be willing to look at these things. And if they aren't, right, then the question you need to ask yourself is, what idea are they comfortable with? And as an artist, as a writer, how do you rattle that cage? Because you're supposed to, at least a little bit.
You have to tell what you hear. That's my baseline. If you hear a story, you have to tell them. You have to push a little, that people have a little sometimes a little shock almost.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my goal, if somebody reads a novel by me, is that at the end of it, they can sit back and go, I've read a good story. And that is not necessarily something that is going to change the world, but you have to put certain assumptions within those stories that perhaps change people's perceptions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
As somebody who has a fairly sheltered life, it is hard for me to make sure that I include enough diversity, enough differences to make the challenges within the stories relatable to people.
It's thinking, not necessarily culture, you have to worry about.
Yeah.
You have to work with what stories you can tell, right? right? So, and I'm not saying like including a designated number of minorities, blah 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 blah. No. You have to work within the context of what you're comfortable telling in terms of what you know.
Yeah.
And then where you challenge yourself is, okay, this way of thinking I have, this idea I have for a story. It can even be just a fun story. Okay. This is almost like how about making a compelling villain? What if the villain's right? Why would the villain be right? Right?
When I wrote things like, when I wrote Digging Up the Past, which has also just been re-edited and a new cover, and is not a bad story, there isn't actually a proper villain. There is still the tension, there is still an antagonist, but it's people that have been caught up in bad things rather than somebody automatically being a villain.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to look at things. You need to ask why. If you're reading a story with a vampire, why is that vampire there? Why were they created? If you're reading about a family, you need to know why are they there. You need to know where they're placed. You need to keep asking these questions. And sometimes the answers you get may not be the comfortable ones, but that's what you've got to put in.
Well, you got, again, you got to make people uncomfortable, right? Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, that's the best part. When the okay, see, all you need to make a really compelling bad guy is a reason and that they believe they're right. And it's better when they actually are, at least a little bit, right? Because then it forces you to recognize, like, wait, if he's right, am I right? That's a very, very different. That's a very different, and it's a more interesting story.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's much more interesting that way. If the bad guy, so my favorite, I'm a comic book guy. One of my favorite villains of all time. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, because he talks in the third person. Doctor Doom's my favorite because it takes a really right because he talks in the third person. But yeah, but if I really want substance and actual depth, Magneto, because he has an interesting point. He's been through a lot of abuse because he was a Holocaust survivor, and then he was a mutant, and he was targeted not once in his life but his whole life. So his perspective is that mutants. He's like, you know what? I've tried being good to these people. They hate me no matter what I'm going to do. I'm fine. I'm going to make them afraid of me, right? And you understand where he's coming from because of everything he's been through. Now, he's a bit of a hypocrite, which is also interesting too, right? He's a bit of a hypocrite, but his point is valid, and it's interesting. It's like, why should I care about these people when they don't give a fuck about me? In fact, they want me dead.
I think a good story, everybody has a reason for what they do.
Yeah.
It may not necessarily be a good reason. Money is in and of itself is not necessarily a good reason. Yeah. But that's what they may be pursuing. They may be pursuing power or, knowledge, whatever. There is always some sort of pursuit. Yeah.
But the thing is, Magneto's actually not a bully. That's the interesting thing. He's not a bully. He honestly cares about his fellow man. He just has a different perspective of what his fellow man is, right? That's it, right? But no, you need in terms. I'm going to just reply this and keep going. Rebecca, the thing is, almost all of us think we're heroes in our own eyes. It's when we learn that when we can be the villain, that's actually when we become better people.
Yeah.
At least for me, that was true with me. When I realized that I could be the villain, and I have been the villain, I became a better person. And it was weird when I came to that realization. But once I realized it, it's like, yeah, wait, I can be a bastard. So,
Yeah, it's one of those things where you.
That too. You do become a better villain as well.
I think with all of us, Rebecca and you and I think there is very much a real push about the story and the questions of that the story can ask as much as the resolutions.
Yeah. Well, it has. Well, it does not be a clean resolution. It's about we want to make characters that are real. The thing is, nobody's entirely a bad guy. No one's entirely a good guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the biggest thing I've learned in the last couple of years is self-awareness. That's one of maybe the biggest difference between a hero and a villain, right? It's not that a good guy can't do bad things or a bad guy can't do good things. It's that awareness of what you want in that moment, right? Right. I'm not saying you're going to be necessarily a good guy if you're doing it because you want to, but there's an honesty there. There's almost like an integrity to your actions at that point. I'm not trying to justify this. This is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do it.
I think there's when you look at people who make decisions within a story, which is it's sort of a slightly artificial environment, you have people who are making decisions, but those decisions should be part of the journey. They're coming from a place. They're coming from a place that they've been treated badly, or they've been treated well, and that is part of what makes the good character is how they came to make those decisions. Sometimes just because they were drunk and stupid, that is a valid reason for somebody to make a decision.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it's human at least, right? I think the most terrifying villain in that regard for me. Did you ever watch a show called Babylon 5?
No, I didn't. It's been on here and I've heard good things about it.
So my favorite villain in the series isn't the big villain or the evil president of Earth. There's an episode where the main character gets tortured, and it's just him and his torturer. The torturer is just like you and me. He goes home to a family. He's got a wife. He's got kids. Right? Very human. Very
Mm-hmm.
very human. But also a complete sociopath. He's doing it not because it's his job. That's it. He has no personal stakes in it. He doesn't care if he lives or dies, really. He just has a job to do. And he's here to do the job because this is how he makes his living. I found that utterly terrifying because this wasn't a guy, this was a guy that was convinced that it was okay to hurt people in the name of some greater good for loyalty to the state, just for the state. That loyalty to the state justified him doing terrible things, right? Because it was his job. That was utterly terrifying to me. Because that means anybody could be a villain and anybody could hurt anybody
Yes.
for the right reason. That was the whole point, right? That was terrifying, right? Magneto.
The Star Trek movies with Khan is another example, I think, of somebody who was a villain, who is potentially an incredibly destructive villain, but they are like that for a reason. They were engineered to be a particular type. They were put in positions where they had to make decisions for their own people that made them a villain to the people they were facing.
So, okay, Khan in the series was that way.
Mm-hmm.
When you first meet Khan, he was built to take over and rule. That was what he was built to do, and so he did. Wasn't necessarily villainous about it, but he just made a decision, and Kirk stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, no, he wasn't that guy anymore. But what he was a guy that lost his. They went to this really hostile world, right? And this world became hostile. It was just one of those accidental, freakish things of fate. And like the woman Colin fell in love with on the series died because of this world, and he became very bitter. He became very very bitter with it, and he just wanted revenge. he was like, I had lost everything because of you, and I'm going to take everything from you. You understood it,
You could
but
see the journey that got him there,
yeah,
rather than him being just a villain.
yeah, no, and it made it very clear what he was and why he did it. But at the same time, I think Khan was more interesting, to be honest with you, in the show than he was in the movie. Because in the show, yeah, he was a dictator type, even in the show, but he was human. There was a very human element.
It was a very compelling performance in the show. I remember that. It
Yeah,
was
no, he had charisma. He had charisma. He was a captivating guy, right, and but he was also very, he was honest about who he was. He never pretended to be anything different. And yeah, he conquered the ship. He did. He did it. He did what he was built to do. Kirk stopped him. Kirk did stop him, but it wasn't easy. And you know, uh, and even then afterwards, it wasn't malicious. Even in an odd way, it was just this is. I am the scorpion. I am going to sting you. It's just my nature. It's just who I am.
This is who I am. This is what I'm doing, and also what I'm doing to protect my own people.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of that.
Yeah. Well, you can have sometimes a clean resolution works, but I would say, Rebecca, but more often than not, they're not clean, right? They're not black and white solutions. Not always, anyway. They need to be. There needs to be a bit of depth to your solutions. You don't need a perfect ending, but I do like happy endings once in a while too. So
if I'm writing a story, I want, especially if I'm writing a novel, I want to leave space for the reader to think and imagine and think, well, what will happen next? Or will so-and-so want to do this? Or how will this work out? Not huge dangling ends, but little corners where a reader can imagine themselves in, because I enjoyed that as a reader. So, I think I want to leave space for people to say, what would it be if I became like the silver in the King's Silver, when my skin turned silver and I developed these powers? How would I deal with it? And that's one of the things I like to leave room for.
Yeah, you want that exploration, which is good. So Miss Lyssa, how do you feel? You've been chatting with me for nearly 2 hours. How do you feel?
I feel energized. Thank you. Yeah. How about you?
I've had fun. I have to wrap this up soon. So
yes. It's getting near my bedtime now.
It's getting near your bedtime. So let's summarize a little bit, and then we'll promote your books. What would Dad do? The spirit of it, not his personality, but the spirit of what he does.
He would explore, definitely.
Yeah, you're right. The spirit of what you would do. I hope you let that guide you. If you are serious about turning your writing into potentially making money, you have to put yourself out there. You have to let yourself be uncomfortable enough to do that. But at the same time, I sincerely hope, Miss Lyssa, you have fun doing it.
Thank you. I'm sure I shall. I've had a blast tonight.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But the second thing is, good luck. I'm gonna wish you the best. I make no guarantees that anything I say is going to lead you to the results you want. But what I'm hoping it allows you to do is you're not going to hold back whatever you choose to pursue. Because, like, as you well know, life is far, far too short for that sort of thing.
Thank you. I definitely feel encouraged. Rebecca, thank you for linking us up.
Yes.
Because if Rebecca hadn't mentioned you, if she hadn't gone on your show, I'm not sure I'd have had the courage to say anything to you. So.
Oh, so by the way, so do you still think you're not interesting?
I can find some bits that are interesting. Yes, I can be interesting.
You are interesting. No,
Well,
not
thank
can
you.
be. Are. Don't again. So here, and maybe the last bit of encouragement, then we'll get to plugging your stuff. There is only one Lyssa Medana. There's only one. You're it, right? So automatically that makes you unique. Second thing though is, um, you've done a lot. You've seen a lot, right? You have again, unlike a lot of people, you have the burden of knowing, which means you also have the responsibility to do, right?
Yeah.
Issa also so she's, who's Issa there, Rebecca?
Isa is amazing. She's one of the editors at Three Furies, one of the owners there, and she is amazing. She
Yeah.
really is. She's wonderful. She's encouraging. She's
Okay,
very
cool.
warm, and she's a great writer.
Yeah.
Isa.
So Issa, okay. So like I said, everybody's interesting. Everybody's got a story. And the stories you tell, whether you realize it or not, are your stories too. So
Thank you. Thank you.
all right. So what's coming out or what's recently come out?
What's coming out at the end of March is a collection of short stories called A Whisper in the Shadows. I've taken some slightly darker stories from my blog, and I'm writing some new material. You've got and I'm going to put a collection out so that you can dip in and have a taster of some of the stuff I write.
All right. So so is there any murder? Is there lots of murder?
It's more like there's some murder, there's some vampires, there's I think a curse or two. It's a bit of horror stuff, bit super. I tend to break out in vampires and werewolves if I'm not watched.
Okay, so that's a biography line. Lyssa tends to break out into vampires and werewolves if she isn't being supervised.
Yes, I think that works. What do you think, Rebecca?
That's a byline right there. Where can I find your book, if you don't mind my asking?
My Forgotten Village and Digging Up the Past, which is self-published, along with Tales of the White Heart, Further Tales of the White Heart, and More Tales of the White Heart, are all on Amazon.
Okay.
Rebecca, I think King Silver's just on Amazon, but Out of the London Mist and Under the Bright Saharan Sky is everywhere.
Yes. Okay. So where?
So start looking at Amazon
Okay.
for my books, and my website is called Always Another Chapter, which I try and make it. That's how I see it as writing. There's always another chapter.
Always a. Okay. So this, hold on a second here, is yours. It's your first one. That's your author page. And
Yes.
Always Another Chapter.
Yep.
.com or .uk?
.co.uk.
Yeah. They gave me an award that. Oh shoot! I screwed up. Well, let's do that one more time. They gave me an award for this, Lyssa. They gave me an award for this. Trained motherfucking professional right here.
Yep, that's it.
All right.
That is me. There's usually some sort of fiction. I am currently on chapter 4 of an ongoing story about somebody who has a spirit that is suddenly occupying their body part-time, and it's causing a few complications in their lives.
Ah, gotcha. That would be awkward. Like, is it like a timeshare? No. Wow.
It's a very skinny, young, unconfident lad has been possessed by spirit of a Bronze Age chieftain.
Okay.
Stuff like that happens all the time, really, doesn't it?
Every Sunday, 2:00 Eastern time. Now,
so yeah, that's it's on chapter 4 at the moment.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Lyssa. She was awesome. We went from everywhere from charity to villains to stuff. So this is my advertising page. I do advertising services. I do words, pictures, audio, and video about your projects and yourselves. You can definitely check me out right now. And that will do it. I am back on Friday with my guest, Madeline Halling-Rosing. We're going to talk about her Kickstarter. Definitely check that out. If you want to support me, check out my advertising services. I got a brand new show, debuting next week. I'm very nervous about it. In fact, I'm working on it as soon as I'm off the air here. For everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. I'll see you guys next time.